Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to this month's travel book club with the Nomadic Network. Feel free to turn your cameras on. We already have the Jessica Nabongo with us.
Hello.
So wave and say hi. We have 45 people trickling in. Before we start today's book club, I just wanted to share a little bit about the Nomadic Network while people are filing in. And if I could ask you to just find the chat and share where you're calling in from, what number TNN event this is for you. And the question I'd like to ask is, if you were to travel to 195 countries, what would you save for last? Which country would you save for last? All right, so my name is Erica Vervo Hackman, and I would love to welcome you to the Nomadic Network Book Club. A little bit about us. We were founded by Nomadic Matt back in 2019, and since then we've hosted over 250, I think it's more like 300 virtual events and about 200 in-person events all over the country and some in other parts of the world. We do have a brand new website that just launched a few months ago. So if you have not been on our website, I invite you to join. It's thenomadicnetwork.com. This is us all over the country. And I would love to invite you to follow us on IG, TikTok, register for our free virtual and in-person events. We also have a ton of group tours going all over the world next year. So we'd love to invite you to come with us on those. And if you want to start a chapter in your city, you can apply on our website to do just that. A few reminders: we love it when you turn your video cameras on. It makes it more of like a we're in real life friends sort of feel. You will be muted for about 2/3 of this as we do this book club, but then at the end, I'll be asking people to unmute themselves if they have a question. So feel free to use the chat to ask questions, share relevant experiences, comment on what's being said. But I do ask that if you have a question, you type the word question in the beginning so that I can easily pick those out and choose you guys to actually ask your question to the author Jessica today. So we really encourage you to follow our speakers and our authors and support them in all ways possible. This is why we bring them to you, so you get to know all these incredible travelers. So let's have some fun and enjoy this time together. I'm so excited to have Jessica Nabongo here, who wrote this amazing book, The Catch Me If You Can, One Woman's Journey to Every Country in the World. I just wanted to share how I know Jessica and just give you a little insight. So a few years ago, I was at the Women's Travel Fest in New York City, and Jessica was the keynote speaker sharing about her journey to traveling to every country in the world. We just figured out that she was only at like 90 countries at the time, but I was like in awe of Jessica. And when I saw that she had a book out and that she had actually completed this crazy journey within like a year of when I had met her, I was like, order that book. And so I had just seen that she had an audiobook, so I ordered that because new moms don't have time to read anymore. And I was listening to the audiobook. Love listening to authors read their own stories. I feel like they're just like telling it to me by a fireside. But you know, she's an incredible photographer. I've followed her on Instagram for years, and I was like, I really feel like I need to order the book and get the full experience. And it was not a bad purchase at all. This is like my new coffee table book forever. It is beautiful, and I feel like I've learned so much from this book, and I have added to my bucket list quite a bit, which I'm excited about, and I'm sure you guys have too. So without further ado, I would love for Jessica to just give us a little bit of insight into her journey and how she came about writing this book. So I'll pass it over to you, Jessica. Welcome.
Thank you. So I can only see people on the side. Are we keeping this up? Okay, cool. Because I'm like, if people can raise their hands, I'm just wondering, or I guess put in the chat, how many people actually have the book and have read the book? Yeah. I love that. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be reconnected with you, Erica, and obviously bring me on to TNN is so fun. So I want to just give a little bit of background on me for those who don't know me, and a little bit of background on the book and how this book even came to be. So I'm Jessica. I'm from Detroit. My parents are Ugandan immigrants, and I born in Detroit, grew up in Detroit, went to school in New York for my first degree, and then I have lived in Japan, Italy, Benin, and London. And yeah, so I've been traveling internationally since I was 4. My parents love to travel. They were very gracious humans and sometimes took me and my sisters with them. My father has passed, but my mother is still around and we still hang out. We're all going to New Orleans next week. So I've really had this love of travel instilled in me from such a young age. And it's such a regular part of my life because people are always like, oh, you've been to every country in the world. You still want to travel? I'm like, yes. Like, it's not like, oh, now I've seen everything. There's nothing else to see. That's not how I feel. So, since my early 20s, I started my blog, The Catch Me If You Can, in 2009. And I have wanted to visit every country in the world since my early 20s. I'm a geography nerd. I'm just a nerd in general. I think I'm just a cool nerd. That's how I like to think of myself. But yeah, so I've always just had that interest. I've been curious about the world. Every year, at the end of the year, I would do like these little recaps of my year. Like, this is how many new countries I went to. This is how many countries I went to, whatever. So when I was on country number 60, which is Indonesia, I was in Bali searching for myself. And I'd read a story about an American woman named Cassie Day Cole who'd been to every country. And I was like, oh, people care, because I already wanted to do it. Before I heard of her or anyone else doing it, I'd already wanted to do it. I never researched, like, has anyone ever been to every country in the world? Because it was just something that I wanted to do. And I liked filling in maps. You know, it's so gratifying when you fill in stuff. And so I read about her, and, you know, I was at a moment in my life where I was just questioning what I was doing. And so during that trip, February 2017, I decided I wanted to be the first Black woman to visit every country in the world. And then I did it. So a lot of people ask me how I did it. I'm like, I really just did it. Like, a lot of planes, buses, walking across borders, whatever it took, visas. Luckily, I have 2 passports. I have an American passport and a Ugandan passport, which helped me to navigate some visa stuff. Like, for example, Iran, Ugandans get visa on arrival in Iran, and Americans struggle to get inside of Iran. So there were a lot of benefits to having that. Also, Venezuela, I had to apply for my Venezuelan visa in Moscow on my Ugandan passport because there was nowhere else to do that or get it. So I think, you know, what made the journey, I would say, a bit easier for me is just my background knowledge and understanding of the world. I did my master's degree at the London School of Economics and studied international development, which essentially is like global political history. And that just gave me an amazing overview of the world. And then I also worked for the United Nations for 3 years, which I think a lot of people don't realize, because we were like, oh, she's just an influencer. I'm like, had a whole couple of lives before Instagram even existed. So I've done the corporate thing, I've done nonprofit, I've done intergovernmental through the UN. I actually used to consult for USAID. So I have, there's multiple parts of me. So that's a bit about my background. Now I want to talk about this book and how this book came to be. So prior to finishing my journey, I had agents at one of the world's top talent agencies, and my lit agent was pushing me to do a book proposal. But I was like, girl, I'm busy. I'm traveling to every country in the world. This is not my priority. But, you know, I was still trying to do it in between my travels. We hired a writer to do my book proposal, and my agent hated what the writer put together. And I'm like, okay, so you just wasted my money when I have none? Cool. So long story short, I ended up leaving my agents because I just thought that they were useless. And that's what happened there. So the idea of writing a book, I just let that go. So as I was, continuing to get press and making my way towards the finish line, a lot of the major publishers hit me up. Hachette, HarperCollins, I met with Penguin Random House. A lot of people hit me up. But the thing was, every time I talked to them, they wanted me to write a book they wanted me to write. It didn't even feel like people were listening to me and were interested in what I wanted to do. So I was just like, no, I'm good. And I recognized how, I'm very grateful, because a lot of people who are writers struggle to even talk to somebody at a publisher, at any publisher, let alone one of the top 5. So very grateful that they were knocking on my door, but I was just like, not interested. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I was just not interested. So then enter the pandemic. And, a lot of news outlets were reaching out to me for my expert opinion on a ton of different things. And so the Washington Post was one of them. And the article was about revenge travel, which was an idea that was sort of developed summer 2020, when number one, we didn't think we'd still be in this shit 2 years later, but we really thought by fall, it was like, all right, everyone's going to be back out there and traveling. That was not the case. But anyway, my editor, Allison Johnson from National Geographic, read that article and then researched me, and then went to my website, filled in the contact us form, and was like, hello, I work for National Geographic. Do you want to write a book? And I'm like, yes, ma'am, I do want to write a book for National Geographic. And that's how we got connected. And I remember I was doing this road trip that summer, and I was in a hotel room in Delaware, and we had the call, and I was like, wow, she really gets me. And she's really open, and she didn't come to me with an agenda. And so it just worked. And I'll be honest, I got a really great book deal, and I didn't even submit a proposal. So she didn't even see an outline until after we had gone and done the book deal. So that was amazing. I didn't have an agent. I have an amazing lawyer. Funny thing is, my lawyer read the same Washington Post article before I even was introduced to her. So that Washington Post article, I guess, just, brought me to where I am. So my lawyer negotiated the deal, and it was amazing. And I saved 15% by not having to pay an agent. So that is how this book came to be. And I will spare you the PTSD of what writing a book actually means. But it's interesting because it is like you're writing a book by committee, right? You're thinking like, oh, I'm writing my book. They're my pictures. I get to do what I want. That is not the case. There were a lot of fights. I did not win all of them. You would think I would win all of them because my face is on the book, my name is on the book, but no, I did not win all of the fights. I did not want this cover. Let's just start there. This was not the cover that I chose. A lot of you, if you follow me, you'll remember that I did all of this polling about the cover, and then they were like, we don't care, we're doing what we want. And I'm like, well, why did you even ask me? Like, why am I here? Anyway, so, but there are like some pictures that I wanted did not make the book. Some pictures I didn't want did make the book, and so on and so forth. But getting it in my hands, because you have to understand, I don't see the book until 30,000 are already printed. So it's not like, oh, well, can we? No, that's the book. I mean, obviously we have PDFs and we have all of that, but you really have you have no idea what this book is going to look like until a box of 30 is sitting in your mailbox. And to open this book, it was so incredible. I was like, oh my God, this is so heavy. Because my original transcript was 160,000 words. They asked for 80,000, to be clear. My contract asked me for 80,000 words, and I submitted 160,000 words. I think we ended up around 110. So I lost 50,000 of my words, and I was not happy about it. But they were kind enough. They expanded the book by 52 pages. It was supposed to be a lot shorter and much lighter. So sorry about that. And so that's how we got to the book. And I mean, we pushed back the original pub date because there's a global paper shortage, and the paper that I wanted that you see in front of you was not available. So we had to push our pub date back 3 weeks, I think. But I'm so happy with this. A Black woman actually did the design. This is the first time National Geographic has had gold foil on any of their books, which I think is really fun. And yeah, I just think it's a really beautiful book, and I'm so happy with the book. I encourage you to read it cover to cover. One of my biggest fears, I was like, nobody's going to read my book because everyone is like, oh, it's a coffee table book. I'm like, no, it's a book. Read the book. And a lot of people, especially if you are from a different country or you have ties to a foreign country, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to read the chapter on my country. So I highly recommend you read it cover to cover. There's a through line, there's a narrative, and then after you can use it for reference, or you can listen to the audiobook in which I speak in 80 languages. So that's sort of the book. And yeah, I mean, I love it. It was a #1 best-selling travel book in the United States for the first 5 weeks that it was out. And yeah, it's just been a wild journey. I don't know if or when I'm writing a book about the other 95. So let me answer that question now. Because the other crazy thing, really quickly, I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to pass it back to Erica. You know, I do this, right? And I'm doing all these interviews like GMA and the Today Show and TMZ, and it's so great. And then people are like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, the book came out like 2 days ago. Can I have a moment, please? Can I enjoy this book? Like everybody is like, well, when's the next book? I'm like, guys, we just got this one. We don't want to just let's live with this. Let's enjoy this one. You know, it's not even, my baby's not even 6 months old yet. And y'all are like, forget about that book. Give us something else. So I'm really trying to give space to this book, to let her breathe, let her just get to her 6-month birthday before anybody starts asking about a younger sibling. And yeah, so that's me. That's my book. I want to hear from you guys, really. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, definitely drop any questions you have in the chat, but I'm going to start off with some questions that I prepared. Jessica, that's incredible. And what a hilarious, like you're pitching all these people and then finally they send you a contact form. Like, do you want to write a book with Nat Geo? Who does that happen to? That's like,
right.
That is fate. And that is like a testament to what a boss you are, just for doing the things that you've done and having the personality that you have. So that's incredible. All right, I have a logistical question.
Okay.
So you had a ton of numbers in your book, like the number of countries you visited solo with friends, places you scuba dived in, places you visited mosques in, all this stuff. Do you have like a very intricate, massive spreadsheet that you've kept all these years that have this? Or was this something that you created for yourself before writing a book? Or do you not have a spreadsheet and do you just remember everything off the top of your head?
I no longer remember everything off the top of my head, because you have to think I finished 3 years ago. So some countries I did like in 2011, you know what I mean? So I remember a lot. I do have a huge spreadsheet from travel because like where I was staying, what the flights are, blah, blah, blah. And then I have on my Evernote, I just have these random lists, like number of countries that I walked into, or number of countries entered by road, number of countries that I went on my Ugandan passport, number of countries I've been to more than once. I just get bored sometimes. And I just start making up random listicles of my travels. So, because, you know, I do so many interviews and I'm so sick of reading the same things and answering the same questions. So I try to like develop new listicles so I can be like, oh, and then I did this in 28 countries or whatever randomly.
What is it like? So you do have one massive spreadsheet of like the hotels and the places, how you got to them?
So for the last 50. I do. Yeah. Because you have to think, because up to 60 was just like, you know, random. And even like 40 after that, it wasn't really like a logistical plan. It was really just like, I would say like the last 50 that were really like, all right, now we really got to figure this out because they're on 6 continents and they're hard to get to and there's limited flights. And so it became more of like a much more difficult puzzle to solve. It was like going from like a 50-piece preschool puzzle to going to like a 10,000-piece puzzle, you know, that's what it went from. Like the first 100 were the preschool puzzle. And then as I got closer to the end, those last 50 were like, God damn it, I lost 3 pieces. Where are they? It took a lot of effort. Let me say that.
I mean, that definitely showed in just your storytelling and of how you got everywhere and how you figured everything out. And I have to say, I think it's really cool that even though you were sort of on a time crunch in the last, bit, like 2 years, you still made a conscious effort to like see some things in each country and not just like step in, step out, like have a layover or something like that. And it really showed, especially because you talked about so many of the countries you did in the end. It definitely showed that you were like intentionally visiting. And I think that's a question that a lot of people have in the travel world is like, what constitutes like visiting a country? So
yeah, and I try to just mind my business and do my life the way that I do my life. I originally was supposed to finish in May on my 35th birthday. And then I was like, oh, I still have 25 countries and I will die if I actually make this deadline. And I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. So I increased my deadline by 5 months, which again allowed me to actually have experiences. There's 11 countries, listicles, 11 countries where I didn't spend the night. Most of them are like microstates like Andorra, Liechtenstein, all those little places, San Marino. But I did not visit any countries on a layover. Like there was never like, oh, I have, even if like obviously those 11, I didn't spend the night, but it wasn't like I have a layover and then I'm going on to another country. So, oh wait, no, that's a lie. Portugal. It was a layover, but that was before I was going to every country in the world as a mission. So I had a layover in Portugal on my way to Senegal one year. And my Portuguese friends made me this amazing walking tour. So literally I took a taxi from the airport, went to point A, and then it literally walked me around the entire city with breaks for lunch and like drinking. And then I went back to the airport. And so I did 5 hours in Lisbon. And I've been back to Lisbon, but technically, yeah, that was a layover. But yeah, it was really important to me. And I think that's kind of what sets me apart in the every country traveler set, if you will. Because I don't only care about some countries, you know what I mean? I really try to give space to every country, even countries that, a lot of people think there's nothing there, like your Central African Republic or Chad or Niger, mostly African countries that nobody cares about. I really tried to find beautiful stories there. And I think I really accomplished that. And even in my book, we had to choose 100. If we did 195, the book would be 5 pounds. But it was really important for me to highlight countries that people typically don't think of, and countries people usually don't see beautiful images from. Like you see a picture of a beautiful beach in Yemen. Where else are you seeing that? You're not seeing that anywhere. So that was important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of my favorite parts of this book was it was giving me a perspective on so many places that you hear so little about. And you were definitely looking at it. It seemed like through almost like, I wouldn't say rose-colored glasses, but it was like through the eyes of the people you were meeting. Like that was one of my favorite parts of this book. It wasn't just like, here's what to see. It was like little stories and tidbits about like the friends that you were traveling with, or the people that you met there, or the locals that helped you with this, or this friend of a friend of a friend of a friend that like let you stay in their house. Like it just seemed very like interconnected. And I feel like, just someone from the outside of like, I'm not even close to your caliber of traveling, but like if you got to this place where you were like counting countries, or even like the parts of China that you've been to, because I know that once you get to 95, you can break up the world into like a zillion pieces and try to visit all the pieces. But like there's gotta be something that you lose when you're not necessarily just like looking at it like, how can I meet the people? How can I like be a part of this? How can I like learn as much as I can, instead of like just seeing the things, like checking the boxes. So I have to commend you on that. I do wonder, what is, since you had to cut 50,000 words, what's, well, I guess you started with 100 countries, right? You didn't have to cut any countries.
No, we didn't cut any countries. I think maybe we replaced one or two. We
But
didn't.
which ones were like number 101 and 102, 103? Like, which ones did you wish you could include, but they didn't make it?
Oh, I have no idea. That was because the thing of the countries that how we started, the 100 countries, like I made that list in November 2020. So basically, I have a list of every country in the world. And I started just deleting, like, I don't have an interesting, like, okay, I have a story, but not enough to like want to share. So I started deleting from there. And then it was like, I don't know, maybe I had like 120 left. And then it was like, okay, where do we have really great images from? Because the book is obviously very image heavy. So that was a huge consideration as well. So that's really how we whittled it down. Then countries like the UK, Mexico, the larger countries that I've been to a million times, I felt like I didn't have enough experience for those countries. So like, for example, Mexico, I've never been to Oaxaca or Guadalajara or Jalisco. So for me, I'm like, I mean, I've been to Mexico probably 15 times, but I just felt like I needed to do more of a cultural deep dive in the country. And then the UK, I hadn't been to Scotland and Wales, and I was like, I'm not about to have these folks coming for me. So I was like, I'm gonna leave the UK right where it's at. And I lived in London, obviously, and I've traveled quite a bit around England, and I've been to Northern Ireland, but I just knew the Scots and the Welsh were gonna come for me. So I was like, I'm not even gonna do this. So yeah, so there were those sorts of considerations.
Yeah. I want to just ask you two more questions that are more overarching for the people that may not have been able to pick up your book yet. And I feel like they're two really big parts of your book. First of all, I am sure that reaching 195 countries as a Black woman who looks unmistakably African, as you put it, you've certainly made a lot of people proud. And I would love for you to just share some, I guess I want you to explain how your journey went from like a you-centric journey to like a bigger journey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here's the thing. Before Instagram existed, I had been to over 30 countries. So if an Instagram didn't exist, I still would have visited every country in the world. It was not hinging on social media. It was not hinging on anybody caring about the fact that I was going to every country in the world. It was for me. Now, because I was sharing on Instagram and people were getting really invested, I realized like, oh, this is so much bigger than me. Because I would get messages from people who are Black and they're like 35 and they're like, I just got my first passport because of you, and things like that. And I'm like, wait, what? And even people who aren't Black, I don't think it was just that Black people were inspired by my story. Like there's been a lot of people who, I see representation here who are older and were inspired by me. An older woman who was retired sent me a message and said, because of you, I went on my first solo trip. And it was in the US, but who cares? Like, just the fact that me living my life authentically inspires other people is just something that I still fail to comprehend, because I'm just like, I would be doing this if no one was watching. So I'm getting emotional. I'm humbled by it. I'm humbled by it, and it comes from such a pure place. And so the fact that not only people who follow me appreciate it, but the fact that like big brands and publishers and networks see that I'm doing something different. You know what I mean? A lot of people are traveling. There's, as far as like Instagram influencers go, I have a big following, but there's people with way larger followings with me who've not even had a fraction of the opportunities I have. And I think it's because of the fact that mine is coming from a pure place. And so much of that is also because I'm Ugandan, right? And I grew up with people. I remember the first time I went to Uganda, I was 6. I was in 2nd grade. And I went that summer, and the summer between 1st and 2nd grade. And I remember coming back and people were like, oh my God, were there lions and tigers and bears? And I'm like, what? People don't live with those. Like, people don't live with animals like that. Are you dumb? But like, you know what I mean? It was just like, these kids are just asking me these questions because they're kids. They don't know any better. And so for me, it just, not only was it an opportunity to just tell my story, but to use my platform to tell the stories of other people. And also to just like, because of my personality, you know, when I used to have to deal with BS with immigration, I didn't stand down. I wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, F you, you're being racist. And yes, I'm entering your country on this passport. Or like, you know, because I had to deal with a lot of immigration. One time, a US customs officer asked me for a second form of ID because my American passport was not enough to get me into the United States of America. And it's that kind of stuff that I had to deal with. And I think by me not backing down and like a lot of times just being a straight up asshole to them made them think twice, you know, and I do that so that it's not for me, it's for people who come behind me, you know. And so I think it just became, yeah, I was just chosen for this mission by some higher power. And I carried it out. And I think, because the other thing is people are like, oh, you're just traveling the world. It takes a lot of resilience. Like being a woman, being visibly African, having my own government harass me like 80% of the time that I try to enter my own home country, like all of that, it takes resilience. And people think it's super simple. And it's like, no, like if you dealt with 20% of what I did, a lot of people never would have gotten on a plane again. But I pushed through because, like you said, I realized it was so much bigger than me. You know, it was for women, it was for Black people, I think it was for everybody. I mean, my following is so diverse that I really think it's for everybody.
Yeah. Very relatable journey. I thought that's what showed through a lot as I was like going through it, because it didn't feel like this thing that not everyone could do. It sort of felt like, okay, should I make this my goal? Should I start this? So it was very inspiring. The other thing I wanted to ask you, I mean, we have a lot of people on this call today, and I know one of your missions in life is to end single-use plastic. So I'd love to give you the platform to share just what you've seen and what we can do in your eyes and your opinion to end that.
Yes. So I grew up in America, and we mostly don't care about the planet. I mean, I remember like reduce, reuse, recycle, but no one actually cared. Like I can still remember when we got a recycling bin in my neighborhood. Like that was a big deal that every house got the blue garbage cans. So it was really my travel that made me realize like, oh, hey, yeah, we are destroying the planet with single-use plastic and a number of other things. And I can remember I was on a road trip from Dakar to the Gambia. And I remember driving down the road and passing this, like, I don't know, let's call it a parking lot. And it was full of plastic. I was like, oh my God. And so like, you know, when I was younger, I remember going to Uganda, you would always see like these black plastic bags because they put everything in these bags. They put food in these bags, grocery, everything, these little black plastic bags, and they would be everywhere. And I just never thought about it. But the one trip that really took me over the edge with it, I was in Nauru in the South Pacific, and we were going snorkeling, and I put my drone up and saw all these dark things. And I thought, oh, there must be coral down here. Can't wait to dive in. And then I get in and it was like plastic waste and other waste. And it was just like, oh my God, like this is one of the most remote countries in the world. And there's all of this plastic waste there. And so for me, it really has become my mission to change how I live completely. You know, and I don't share everything, not because I don't want to, just because I just don't share my entire, I'm just like, I'm trying to just do things. But for me, it has become incredibly important to just reduce my use of single-use plastic. So how do I do that? When I travel on planes, I bring my cup. So I never use a plastic cup on a plane. Like, if you think about how many cups that reduces, it's a lot. And if everybody did it, it would be so much. I always travel with my reusable water bottle. I drive an electric car. Like, I use dishwasher and laundry products that don't have plastic. I have everything is refillable. You know, I went to Trader Joe's this morning. I walked with my bags. So I really, as part of my daily life, I'm constantly thinking, how can I reduce the use of single-use plastic, but also waste overall? So like, I don't buy a ton of clothes. And even when brands are like, oh, we want to send you something, I only let people send me things that I know I'm going to wear multiple times. Like, so I don't just get free stuff. If I know I'm not going to use it, I don't receive it, because it's just more waste. And we have to think about, how can we reduce not only our single-use plastic, but how can we just reduce waste in general? So I think if you just start thinking in your everyday life, every single thing you do, like, do I need to use this? Do I need to buy this? You really start to see how wasteful we are and how that impacts the planet. So that's the thing. It's like, I think it's important to just be more aware of it on a daily basis. And just try to do what you can to just reduce it down in a way that, you know, helps the planet.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you there. If you have other ideas, feel free to throw them in the chat, because this is a very worthy topic to be sharing about. But I would love to turn it over to some of the questions. I will say that some of your questions are thoroughly answered in the book. So I would really recommend reading it cover to cover. It is wonderful, and you will not be mad about the 13 hours you listened to it or the many days it took you to read it.
40 hours to record it. So you guys got off easy.
It is fun. Listen, like, you could see how animated Jessica is. That's how animated she is in the audio book. So, but I have selected a few questions that I'd love for you to answer. Party Paul, are you still on the call? Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your final question?
Oh, Paul is a whole party. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's the hat, it's the background, it's everything. Hello, party. You are
Hi. Hi, Jessica. So nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for choosing my question. One of my biggest questions, I asked this question to almost all the travelers that I meet, because I'm also a traveler. I love traveling, but one of the biggest challenges is finances. So and since you've traveled every country in the world, that's like, I'm guessing that, you know, the bills add up. So how did you finance all your travels? Was there a particular way that you did it throughout the whole time, or did you gain finances from all kinds of different sources? And because finances are often a challenge, did you, I'm sorry that I haven't read your book yet, so maybe this is answered in your book, but did you do a lot of countries all at once and kind of have a chunk of money that financed all of it right away? Or did you have to peter it out and sometimes even spend a few years here and there without traveling that much before you built up some finances again? So
yeah, good question. I actually hate the how did you pay for a question, but I like the way you asked this. Because it's very specific. I like very specific questions. But yeah, so it was a variety of things. So I think the thing to remember is, number one, I've been traveling internationally since I was 4. So by the time I graduated high school, I'd already been to 8 countries, right? And so it was a regular part of my life, because I think part of the question was, or did you not travel for years? There's never been a year where I probably haven't done more than 5 countries. Like, I can't. The last time I probably didn't travel more than 5 countries was probably like 2008 is probably the last time I didn't travel to at least 5 countries in a year. So just for reference. So the other thing to remember is that when I did like the first, let's call it 60, I was working a 9 to 5. So I had my salary and I was just paying for vacations. Now I lived abroad. So like living in Europe, I lived in Europe, I think for like 4 years. That helps to travel around European countries. And then, yeah, when I was like traveling full time, it was definitely like, okay, I'm about to go to all these countries in this region. And then I would try and group it by regions in that way. So by one like round trip ticket in and out of the region, and then buy like little cheaper tickets within the region. Or, like when I was in South Africa, I rented a car and I drove to Lesotho, Swaziland, and Botswana. So depending on where you are, you could rent cars and do it like that. Beyond that, I use credit cards for everything. So you get a lot of free travel with credit cards. I think 1 year I used like 400,000 points on my Chase Sapphire to like get free travel. Cause that's like, like $6,000 or something. And so I use a lot of like credit card points. I'm super loyal. So I'm not only loyal to Starbucks to get my free coffees. I'm loyal to airlines. I have an account with all of the major airlines so that I always make sure that I'm racking up miles, and because that's free travel. So even if British Airways canceled my account, which I just found out because I had to buy a BA flight last week. And I'm like, wait, I don't have an account. But I still have my American Airlines account. So I just put those points on there. And so that's all free travel. Rental cars. I'm super loyal to Hertz. So I have now I think I have a free rental day. Hotels. I use hotels.com. I have 4 free hotel nights. So all of that ends up leading to free travel, if you will. And so I don't use cash for anything. Now you have to be fiscally responsible, because what I do is at the end of the month, I pay all my credit cards in full. So I can't pay my rent on a credit card, which sucks because obviously that's my biggest expense. But everything, literally anything I can put on a credit card, all of my utility bills are all paid by credit cards, because I'm I want all of my points. So that's another big thing. Oh, she's saying Built. I've seen that card. I haven't even, because it's United and I don't ever fly United. So I'm I got to figure out how to transfer out of it. But yes, so that's
Built. We just had a whole travel hacking event the other day, and it was by a Canadian guy, and he was talking about Built, even though he doesn't even have access, and he was like, get Built if you pay rent.
I know, and I met the founder. I'm let me actually look into it too. You can transfer to American. I don't really fly American. I really only fly Delta. So I fly American if I have to. I'm flying from London to Berlin. There is no SkyTeam partner doing that flight nonstop. So that's why I'm flying an American partner. But I really don't. I really only fly Delta and SkyTeam.
That's pretty incredible. Are they sponsoring you?
Let me tell you guys, because a lot of people have so many assumptions about my life. 195 countries. I had a free flight to one. The South African Tourism Board flew me out. That's the only time. I don't have a buddy pass. I don't have anything. I paid for those flights. So Delta, why Delta has not called me, I don't know. I'm a diamond million miler. It is beyond me at this point.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. Okay, so we have a question from Sharon Williams. Sharon, do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Oh, you're on mute.
There you go.
Yes, I was just wondering if being female or your ethnicity either was detrimental or caused problems or was beneficial. I mean, were there any examples of either one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would just say, as far as the way I look, it really was immigration only. I mean, obviously, sometimes people stared, sometimes people were rude, but nothing that was oh my God, I'm never coming back to this country because I'm Black. I didn't have any of those experiences. When people are where would you not go back to? Moldova and Belarus are probably number 1 and 1 on that list. They're tied for that list. And it's because people weren't friendly. So some people can assume race, but I'm no, I know Black people who've been to those countries and they like it. It just wasn't my vibe. So that's what I would say about that. And then as far as beneficial, I do think being a woman actually is more beneficial because obviously, especially in Muslim countries, men cannot enter female spaces, period. Like it's just not happening. But I'm charming. And so I often could enter male spaces because I could just become like, please just let me go. No one cares. Like, don't worry. I'll just sit in the background. So I remember in Ethiopia, there was this like drinking house or whatever it was, and it was for men only. And I begged, I was like, just let me go. And so they let me go. Whereas like if it was an all female space, they never would have allowed a man into that. So I definitely think that there were more benefits to being a woman than detriment. And I mean, I think as women, the nice thing about being a woman is that we have our like internal spidey senses that are like danger, danger. And so, I used that. And so when I was like danger, I turned and went the other way. So I didn't have like what had once a taxi driver in Rome tried to kiss me on my mouth. When I was leaving Senegal, my driver who I'd been with all week and I had with clients all week proposed an Easter orgy the day I was flying out. And so I was like, danger, danger, do not pick me up. Do not take me to the airport. It was crazy. But beyond that, I've been fine. And I think, I really hope that my story helps women feel like it's bullshit what the world wants us to think, like, oh my God, but as a woman, how did you go to all of these countries? It's like, I got on a plane just like the man. Like there's no, in my opinion, as a woman, I don't think we need to be like, oh my God, if I travel solo, I'm going to end up chopped up and thrown in a river. Like if it happens, it's really awful. And I'm so sorry. And I'm sure it has happened to people and it is a horrible thing. But there are tens and actually millions of women who travel alone and they are fine. I did 89 countries solo. A lot of those are countries on the like US do not visit list. I'm still here. I'm still happy and full of joy. So I think what I hope is that women stop thinking about their gender when they're making plans to travel. Just go. You can go anywhere you want to go. And now, okay, cover, wear a hijab, whatever you have to do, be respectful of local culture, but you're fine.
If I'd like to add on to that, you're fairly young. I'm a senior at this point. I don't know, did you happen to notice any issues regarding age for travelers? I mean,
I don't know, but I recommend that you follow the Traveling Black Widow. Her name is Shar, I think Wilson. Her husband died and she was like, well, I'm still gonna live this life. And she's been to over 100 countries. She travels solo around the world. She inspires me. So I highly recommend that you give her a follow. Because she's amazing and she's older and she's out here and she's doing it.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Perfect. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah.
She's really, I love her. I'm obsessed with her.
Something else. Something else. Max, we have a question about going back to Uganda from Max. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kia ora from New Zealand.
Oh, hello.
It's 5 a.m. here. I'm still half asleep. I'm interested in the aspect of, have you been back to Uganda after you have published? And did you notice any difference in the attitudes of especially dealing with media and, just locals in that way? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't been back since I published the book. I was there February 2020. So I had finished visiting every country in the world. I had been on the cover of a couple of the biggest newspapers in the country. And I had an event there and it was amazing. There were a couple hundred people and it was just super beautiful to see. Yeah, am I nervous about going back now that everything has gotten even bigger a little bit, like kind of because of security. And then, like I have family there. So then everyone thinks I'm a billionaire and I'm like, oh. So, it's everybody, I get emails and DMs from people asking me for money all the time. So that's kind of what I think is going to be challenging, but I plan to go hopefully in the next few months to do like a book tour there. But it's been a struggle with my publisher to get books on the African continent, which is really frustrating for me. Yes, so there's not a lot of books even available in Uganda, which pisses me off. But that's the current situation. So yeah, I haven't been back since I published, but I really am looking forward to it.
I will add that I went to a Rotary Club meeting in my town not too long ago when we had this already scheduled, and the ex-president of our Rotary Club is the ex-Ugandan diplomat from the UN. And so I was like, hey, do you know Jessica Nabongo? And he was like, no, I don't. And so I like forwarded him all your information. I was like, you should really know about this woman. She's pretty incredible. So
Thank
he
you.
might be on the call right now. I'm not sure, but I'm spreading the word because I'm like, gotta know about her. She's like,
yeah, I've gotten a lot of love in Uganda. So I'm really grateful that it's definitely made it there.
Yeah, that's incredible. I would like to end with Susan Duvall's question. Susan?
So Jessica, thank you for this wonderful talk. And I'm wondering, what are your next goals or projects or adventures that you have in mind? Because you certainly live life fully. I'm curious.
Relaxation. I'm planning on taking off 6 to 8 weeks. That is my first major goal. And it's so hard. Like it's so hard to even plan to take off the time. But that's really important to me. But we are pitching, I'm pitching a couple books, children's books, cookbook. And yeah, having conversations around turning this book into a television series, which I think will be super fun. But honestly,
Would you be in it?
I don't know. It depends on the deal. Hollywood is so complicated. But maybe you'll see me acting on your screen. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, honestly, for me, like I'm taking life super slow. It's not important for me to have another project or to have another book. It's important for me to just always make sure that everything I'm doing, I'm super passionate about, because if I'm not, I won't want to do it. So I try not to enter into things that I won't do well. So that's why I say no a lot more than I say yes. And I mean, I say no to things like if I really said them, people will be like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. I know what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And, you know, a lot of people, networks and publishers and all types of folks get upset when you tell people no. People do not like the word no, especially coming from women. And I think especially coming from Black women, it's always like, what do you mean no? This is an amazing opportunity. I don't want to do it. So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Well, I also just want you to share about what you do have going on, because I know you have a few other projects, and I think it's very inspiring for the travelers on the call to know like what you can turn your passion into besides a book. You have like a shop and a travel membership and all this sort of stuff. So
I was like, what can I talk about? I was like, what? No, so I have my shop, which we're gonna wind that down soon, but it's called The Catch and I love it. I'm obsessed with it. So we design jewelry and home goods with artisans in different countries. So right now we have a ton of home goods from Senegal and a couple pieces of jewelry left that I made with Kenyan artisans from recycled brass. So definitely check that out. This is thecatch.com. The Nabongo list is kind of on hold right now. Again, because I'm trying to like take it slow. So my business ventures haven't been moving at the same rate, but that's okay because it's okay. I have something really amazing coming out probably in a month with WhatsApp. I can't say anything about it, but it will be good when it comes. Once we're doing a series. It's a bit of a travel series. So that, if you're not following me on Instagram, definitely follow me. Sign up for my newsletter because it will be in all of that. But that is something I'm really excited about. So definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like traveling, here's the thing, and here's what I will say first and foremost. Don't travel because you think somebody will pay you to do it. That is for me, just a really weird way to start doing something. Because you will get burned out. I still rarely get paid to travel. People are like, oh, they look at my Instagram, they're like, oh my God, you're living my dream life. You're getting paid to travel. I'm like, where? Where am I getting paid? What? I've not made most of my money from being paid to travel. Now, what I did do was I spent my money on my travels that became interesting and valuable to people, and people pay me to do different things. But I don't get paid to travel very often at all. Like, because typically their budgets can't even afford the rate that I charge to do certain things. But I would say, like, if you want to travel. And then if you're like a good writer and storyteller and photographer, then, you know, things will come from that. But I don't think it's a good idea to start something thinking, how can I get somebody to pay for this thing that I want to do? Why would they pay for it? If you're not like a celebrity or something, why would somebody pay to do a thing that you want to do? That's just, for me, it's the wrong way of thinking, and it leads to burnout. Because that's really, I mean, I see it. People DM me all the time. They're like, I want to be a travel blogger. How do I get, you know, people to pay me? I'm like, what? I can't help people like that, because I don't think that's just, in my head, it's not the right way to start something. So things can absolutely come out of it. Obviously, like, I work with a ton of brands who pay me because I have a big audience. So they pay me to do things. And what I will say, and you'll see on my page, I don't work with a lot of brands. I say no a lot more than I say yes, because number one, I want it to be an authentic partnership. So it has to be something I use. So if you see me doing a brand deal, it means that I have been using those products for months or years. You know what I mean? And so if I'm ever selling something to my audience, trust me, I love that thing. And I will never, ever promote anything on my page that I don't already love. So I hope, like, just know that coming from me, that I'm not using my Instagram as a billboard, and I never will do that. It's really authentic partnerships that just make sense to me. So yes, I don't know how I got here, but
It was a great place to get to. I just want to, again, sing the praises of your book. I think it's wonderful. I know a lot of you already have it. A lot of you have already read it, but if you haven't, it will give you a very unique perspective on a lot of places that you rarely, if ever, have heard of. So please, please, please pick it up, read it, like, share it, pass it on. Let's see how far we could have these books go. I mean, this is a message that needs to be shared. So I really appreciate your time and for you coming on, Jessica. This was so special. And I just love having authors come on and just really inspire our travel community. And I think that, yeah, this was a wonderful hour. And I'm very grateful to you for writing this book and for sharing with us. Do you have anything you want to say before we close out? And
I just want to say thank you guys for hanging out with me so early in the morning, early in the morning on this coast. But no, this is really incredible. A lot of the things that I told you, I've never really said publicly. So you guys got a little insight into some things. So, but this was really incredible. If you haven't already, please pick up the book, share it with your friends. Please review the book. That is so important. Review it on Audible, on Goodreads, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you typically review. Even if you don't typically review, go review the book. It means a lot. The holidays are coming. Buy more books for your family. But yeah, that's it. If you love the book, just tell other people why you love it and have them pick it up. That's how you can support it.
Yeah, I'll also share if you have little ones and they're interested in this, there's like a whole little kids downloadable thing on her website that's really cute that I've never seen before in a book. So it's really adorable.
You know, it's so funny because the reason that came about is all these people were sending me pictures of their kids with my book, and I hadn't even considered, I don't have kids. Not that I don't think about kids, but I don't really consider children when I do things. And so when we saw how kids were interacting with this book, we were like, okay, let's do something so that they can like really engage with it versus like just looking at it. They can like play these little games with the book. And I'm wanting to work on I have a book idea for a children's book series that I think is going to be my real legacy. So I can't wait to help little kids learn about every country in the world.
That's incredible. Before we wrap up, can we take a photo? So if you have your book, can you hold it up? And if not, can you just smile really beautifully? And I'll grab a screenshot. 1, 2, 3. Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. But I just have like 2 minutes of announcements and then we can go on our way. We do these every month. So very excited that you guys are all here and hopefully you come to our next month's book club, which is actually by Chris, who's been on the Nomadic Mat team for many years. He just came out with his second book. We're going to do his first book because it's about travel and the other one is about a dystopian, futuristic, I don't know, Hunger Games sort of thing. Sounds too scary to read to me, but it's going to be cool. Let me just share my screen one more time. And then you guys can go on your way. Hold on. You guys are amazing. Okay. I got so enthralled in this. Let's do this. Okay. So just to share, again, we do so many events. We have a lot of events coming up and you could find those all on our website, thenomadicnetwork.com/events. We have virtual events that are all presentation based and we also have meetups all over the country. And we also have just launched a bunch of our group tours. So if you'd like to travel with us, we have a ton of really awesome trips to Turkey and Morocco and all these different places. So definitely go on this. I'm going to the one in Oaxaca in April. So if you want to travel with me, join that trip. And this is our next book. It's by Christopher Oldfield. Like I said, he's on our team. I'm very excited for him to be the featured author. His book, The Dogs of Nam, it's just a collection of stories of his travels. And he has had some strange, incredible travels. And so it's a really fun book to read. And I just wanted to say thank you again to Jessica for being here. We loved your book. And we loved having you on this call. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Last but not least, thank you, community, for joining us. It's always so much more fun when you show up and turn your cameras on and ask your questions. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Add to your bucket list, go travel, hop on a Delta flight, make some local friends, do the things, get inspired by Jessica, and just like go. All right, have a great day. Bye.
Bye.